This podcast is not safe for work and will feature movie spoilers. It will feature scenes described of a graphic nature. It will contain language which most listeners may find offensive. Welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. Hi everyone and welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. I'm your host Duncan. Welcome to the show. This is a bonus episode and review of a brand new title. Now, we've just literally done one of these, under a week ago I think it was, for Fear in the Night, and we're back covering another Studio Canal release from Hammer Studios. So this time we're looking at Blood from the Mummy's Tomb from 1971. So on this video, you will get an unboxing, you will get a little bit of history about the movie itself, my overall thoughts on it, and then we'll talk a little bit around the special features, going to give it a grade, going to let you know whether or not it's worth your time. Now, this particular version is the 4K UHD, it's the collector's edition set that came out, and up front, I will thank very much Fetch PR, who sent through this for review. They've been really kind to me this year, so I can't do enough but shout great things at them. So yeah, we're going to look at this. There is another one coming of these before the week is out. There's a third title that we will touch upon. And both this one and the other one have the same street date. So yeah, it's the 6th of April. This one will find its way into a shop that you can pick up from or pre-order from wherever you would pre-order your Blu-rays from. So, let's take a short break. When we come back, it's time to do a little unboxing on this movie and find out what's inside the box. What's inside the box? So here we go. Yeah, it's very similar to the previous box set. It contains a reinforced cardboard cover with the new artwork. Inside you have both, in this version, the 4K UHD as well as the Blu-ray. You get two posters like the previous one. So you get the brand new artwork. Both posters are on that really nice fine kind of poster paper. But yeah, the brand new artwork here, as seen it on the cover artwork, as well as one of the original posters, which I actually prefer if I'm honest. I think it's super cool and retro. That's also on reinforced kind of poster paper. Then you have the booklet. And the booklet itself has tons of stuff in there, loads of information about the release, about the history, the impact of the movie, some stuff about the production as well. And it kind of sets out, so they've really not spared any expense in giving you as much as possible crammed into this collector's edition. Hammer horror and ancient Egypt go hand in hand. But Blood from the Mummy's Tomb is where a familiar formula takes a sharp and surprisingly subversive turn. Released in 1971, this is a film that arrives at a complicated moment for Hammer Film Productions, the studio that once dominated horror through the late 50s and 60s with bold colour, gothic iconography and stars like Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee was, by the early 70s, beginning to feel the pressure. Audiences were changing, tastes were shifting, and Hammer was experimenting, sometimes boldly, sometimes unevenly, to stay relevant. And Blood from the Mummy's Tomb sits right in that space of transition. Directed by Seth Holt, and based on the story by Bram Stoker, this isn't your traditional shambling mummy tale. Instead of a bandaged monster stalking victims, the horror here is psychological, sensual, and crucially centred on female identity and power. At the heart of it all is Valerie Rheon, delivering a dual performance that completely defines the film. She plays both Margaret, the modern woman, and Queen Terra, the ancient Egyptian ruler whose spirit threatens to overtake her. And this is where the film becomes genuinely fascinating. Because rather than presenting Terra as simply the villain, the film frames her as something far more ambiguous, a powerful female presence reclaiming agency across time. There's a strong undercurrent here of gender subversion. Margaret just isn't a victim, she's a vessel, a battleground, and potentially something far more dangerous than the men around her realise. Leon leans into this duality brilliantly. As Margaret, she's composed but increasingly distant, as if something ancient is quietly awakening beneath the surface. As Terra, even in stillness, she exudes control and menace. It's not an exaggerated performance, it's restrained, hypnotic, and all the more effective for it. Supporting her is Andrew Keir, who stepped in under difficult circumstances during the production, and brings a grounded, authoritative performance as the archaeologist drawn into the mystery. There's also James Villiers, whose Corbeck adds a layer of obsession and manipulation, representing the very Hammer tradition of men attempting to control forces far beyond them, only this time those forces are unmistakably female. And that's what makes the film stand out within Hammer's mummy cycle. Earlier entries leaned into the physicality of the monster, the lumbering figure, the curse, the inevitability of death. Here, the horror is more internal, more psychological, and more tied to identity. The quote-unquote monster isn't chasing victims, it's emerging from within. Visually, this film is striking. Hammer regular Arthur Grant brings a richness to the imagery, blending modern settings with flashes of Egyptian iconography, while the production design creates a sense of ancient power bleeding into the present. There's also a strong, eerie score for Tristram Cary that reinforces the film's dreamlike, unsettling tone. But it's worth noting the production itself was troubled. Director Seth Holt passed away during filming, and the production had to be completed under challenging circumstances. That tension arguably seeps into the final film. There's an unevenness at times, but also a strange, compelling energy that makes it feel distinct from almost any of the other polished Hammer productions. In terms of impact, Blood from the Mummy's Tomb wasn't a major commercial turning point for Hammer. By this stage, the studio was struggling to replicate its earlier successes, and the horror landscape was shifting towards something grittier and more explicit. It was the early 70s after all. But retrospectively, the film has gained a reputation as one of Hammer's more unusual and intellectually bold efforts, particularly for its treatment of gender and power. It's not just another mummy film. It's a reinterpretation, and it's exactly why this new 4K restoration matters. It's presented in Dolby Vision, and the film's visual textures, its deep shadows, its rich colours, and almost surreal atmosphere are given a clarity that enhances its strengths. This isn't just a nostalgia piece. It's a chance to reevaluate a film that perhaps didn't fully land in its own time, but feels more relevant now. The collector's edition also leans into that reappraisal, offering a wealth of extras that explore both the film's themes and the complicated production history. It's a kind of release that treats the film not just as entertainment, but a piece of Hammer's evolving identity, and we'll talk about that in the next segment. So where does Blood from the Mummy's Tomb sit in the Hammer canon? It's not the most iconic, it's not the most polished, but it might be one of the most intriguing. A film where the horror isn't just ancient, it's transformative, where the real power doesn't lie in the past, but who it controls in the present. And thanks to this release, it's finally getting the attention it deserves. So, Blood from the Mummy's Tomb. This was... I thought I'd seen this one before. I clearly had not seen this one before at all. And as a result, very early on into the viewing, I was like... Right, this is different. This is not what I expect. As soon as you put Hammer film production at the top and Mummy in the title, you kind of have an idea what you're going to get. I thought the kind of switch of the gender role of the mummy was literally just going to be, this bandaged, stumbling entity has tits. You know, like something as kind of superficial and, let's be honest, at times, Hammer-like. And it's not that at all. It really actually handles it well beyond its time. And like I mentioned earlier on, I think that pivot towards trying to subvert not only expectation but the stereotypes that Hammer themselves have built up would be something that is not only worthy of reappraisal but actually might land a little bit better in 2026 when we have supposedly more mature perspectives on film, gender and and just identity overall. This one is packed with special features, very much like the previous release, The Fear in the Night was. In the case of this one, you have a new feature with Valerie Leon's Inside the Mummy's Tomb. Kim Newman's back here again, having a bit of a chat. This time he's exploring Blood in the Mummy's Tomb. You've got audio commentary with film historian Steve Haberman, which, as you'll know from all these reviews, I don't listen to the entire commentary. Sometimes do when I revisit movies further down the road. In the case of this one, I switch them on when the movies become relatively... When we're doing a lot of exposition or a lot of travelling, I'll switch on a commentary and hear what the commentator's saying. It was surprisingly interesting, so I don't know if I've heard much of Steve Haberman's views on movies before. I dare say he will be somewhere in the myriad of films behind me. You've got The Pharaoh's Curse, Inside Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, an interview with Valerie Leon and Christopher Wicking, and then interview with the sound recordist Tony Daw, interview with camera operator Neil Binney, the TV radio spots, the black and white lobby cards gallery, the colour version of the lobbies gallery, behind the scenes still gallery and trailers, and of course what you saw in the box here. I love, and I mentioned this before as well, but I love the addition of 2 separate posters. I know that might seem trivial, but I hate you either have one side or the other. In the case of this one, the original artwork is kind of amazing. This new one is kind of sweet as well, but you know, rather than being forced to have one or the other, you could have both. So it's small details like that I enjoy, as well as the booklet, which is full of fascinating information, which, like I said, I've already mentioned. So this movie is out on the 6th of April. This is part of a series of movies that Studio Canal is releasing from Hammer. We've got one more to do this week, and I think at that point we're all caught up. But the main thing to take away is, like I said, I don't think this is necessarily the best Hammer movie. I don't even think this is the best Hammer movie from the 70s. By then, we were starting to get a lot more playfulness, a lot more involvement from Christopher Lee with his pulling in of Dennis Wheatley's stuff. So, like The Devil Rides Out and To the Devil a Daughter, but as much as I like that movie, I'm fully aware it's deeply flawed. But we start getting a lot more of that, and they're a lot more experimental in the kind of death throes of the decade that really kind of cements its demise before it's kind of reopening later on. So in terms of that, if you're stacking it up against the entire Hammer catalogue, it maybe doesn't hit the top notes. But surprisingly enough, I find the Hammer titles that are the ones that are most interesting to talk about, are the ones that I remember the best, are the ones that stand out as stark contrast to the ones before, whether it's Christopher Lee as Dracula demanding to say no lines in a movie, or, you know, Peter Cushing adopting, like we mentioned in the previous review, a different, more psychological, more kind of straight role than his kind of flamboyant, like overtly British campness that he would in so many roles for Hammer. So it's these things that stand out, and as such, Blood from the Mummy's Tomb is certainly a title that will stick with me, and I think it's worth your purchase as well. I keep saying these things about these 4K UHDs. I don't think you're going to get a better print than this. I just don't think the way with physical media is going, like, studios are going to continue upgrading. Watch me be wrong in 5 years' time when the 8K ultra high definition release gets greenlit. But I think this might be it. And if you're going to be a collector and you're going to shelve out some money, then get the collector's edition. It's a definitive one for sure. So yeah, in terms of a grade overall for this one, I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5. I would definitely watch this one again. I'd give it a little bit of time, and I'm kind of jonesing now to like really start digging back through the various Hammer box sets that I've got kicking about my media room, and kind of start getting back into that. It's been a long time since I spent so much time looking at Hammer movies, and there's a kind of warm comfort about going back to the movies that you grew up on. So yeah, there we go. Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, released by Studio Canal. Thanks to Fetch PR for sending me this copy for review. We've got another one coming up, but yeah, it's available 6th of April on this fancy version. So it's 4K UHD. I think there's just the standard 4K version and a Blu-ray. And if you buy as always, the 4K UHD or the 4K, you get the Blu-ray inside it as well. So yeah, might as well just, you know what? And I'm not telling you to shelve out extra money, but why don't you just buy the 4K UHD? Even if you've got the Blu-ray player just now, because eventually you will upgrade, and when you upgrade, you've got both. See? Problem solved. I am connecting dots and building bridges, ladies and gents, and I'm going to be closing out the show, and I'm going to be doing it right after this. And you've been checking out the podcast Under the Stairs bonus episode, Blood from the Mummy's Tomb. That's what we reviewed. Available 6th of April, as is this title. And this is the next one we'll be covering. So this review is dropping, I think, on Wednesday. The Demons of the Mind review will be dropping, I think, Friday, Saturday. That title is also out on the 6th of April. Same idea, Studio Canal, putting it out, Fetch for sending it through. It's a Hammer Film production. I'm going to watch this tonight. I've never seen this movie before, so I am mega curious to see about this one. It reads like something that will scratch that itch that I just talked about breaking out the old school Hammer sets for a bit of nostalgia. So we'll see how that one goes. And that'll be in the next episode. As always, thank you very much for checking out this review. We will have that review of the upcoming title, and then another review of, I think it's a slasher classic we're doing for Sunday, which will be the next one in that lineup from 88 Films, before we then finally bring you that new horror movie review that I promised, which is The Mortuary Assistant. So there'll be a review for that going up early next week as well. So keep your eyes peeled. Make sure you're subscribed if you're on the YouTubes. Ding the bell, subscribe, follow, whatever it is. Leave comments. Have you seen the movie before? Are you going to buy the movie? Do you like it? Do you not? Etc. etc. If you're checking us out on Spotify on the video podcast over there, then also make sure you're subscribed. If you're listening to just the audio and you didn't get the full, I always find it funny if you're listening to the audio and you missed the unboxing and you just heard me talking about what was in the box and all the other stuff, then also please make sure that you are subscribed, because things like Apple Podcasts have just enabled the video podcast feature and they're rolling that out now, so eventually it'll catch up to the supplier I have and you will get to see a ton of stuff that we've done in the video content. So make sure wherever you're listening to us, subscribe. The podcast Under the Stairs thanks you for your patience, thanks you for your time, and all that's left for me to say is wherever you are, whatever the time zone, in this big bad world, and it is a increasingly dangerous world that we live in right now, please take care of yourselves out there and your friends and your family. In fact, send your friend a little text message and tell them you're thinking of them, and then tell them it was the podcast Under the Stairs that told you to do that, and if they're not checking that out, they should check it out as well. But yeah, please take care of yourselves out there. It's Duncan McLeish. He's broadcasting live from Under the Stairs. He's forgotten how to close a show comfortably, and I will speak to you next time.